Hello everybody, welcome back to Automation. Today we're going to continue our American Engine Recreation mini-series. Last time I left off with the LT1 as we were working our way through the Chevy 350 family of motors. Today we're going to start with something pretty special, an oddball in the Chevy 350 family. And then we're going to move on to two motors that are becoming extremely iconic in the modern era. Almost as iconic as the old original 350 Chevy was. So let's go into our sandbox here. We'll go to the engine manager and a new engine. We're gonna go for a V8, obviously, but this motor is going to be all aluminum. That is unique to begin with, but not unheard of. That is something that is becoming more popular, is all aluminum V8s. But what we have is a all aluminum V8 in the year all the way back to 1991. So what this is the LT5 ZR1 Corvette motor. This motor is an extremely rare engine and was pushing all the boundaries it could possibly push in 1991. It actually was a little bit earlier than that. About 86 is when they started development on it. I'm choosing 91 because that is the year I pulled the specs off, and that is the year that basically it became the most refined and made the most power and all of that jazz. So something that's a little different about this motor is the bore and stroke. It is still it still is a 350, but it uses a 99. Really wish this slider was not quite so sensitive. 99 by 93 millimeter stroke. So that is pretty dramatically different than the 350s we've seen previous. The bore and stroke are much closer to each other. It keeps the 4-inch bore spacing. That was very important to GM. They wanted to keep it in the same style, the same heritage family. But Lotus is actually who ends up doing most of the grunt work on this motor. And they did all the tech work and definitely the top end work. So we'll get there in a minute. The bottom end isn't spectacular. Most of the stuff seems to just be normal cast, but of very high quality. The pistons I read were Alumacast. I don't really have an option for that. I have regular cast, and then you go up to high protectic. I'm gonna go for that because it's more high tech than regular cast pistons, and I have a feeling that this motor is going to struggle to keep its insides inside here in the sim or in the game. So I'm gonna go for that, and a pretty good bump in quality on the bottom end to start with. So up top we've got something completely unique to these motors, and that is a dual overhead cam 4 valve per cylinder setup. So that's completely even in the newest Corvette you can buy right now, there's still overhead valves. So this was extremely pioneering and very unheard of for a GM to make a move like this. Obviously iron heads as well, or sorry, aluminum heads as well. But that's what strikes me as the most awesome part about this. Ford has done a lot with overhead cam on their V8s, but Chevy never has, besides this motor and this motor's descendant, the North Star, which was in Cadillacs. But that's why I'm excited to see how this thing does and see if I can get close to the numbers it made, because the numbers were really impressive. So we're looking for 11:1 compression, fairly high, definitely getting up into the yellow there. Cam profile, I'm going to leave it 40 for now. I'll adjust that as needed. This motor, another one that was fairly hidden, but obviously you got different covers than normal since it's still overhead cam. What am I gonna go with? I think I like this, but not not in a bright color, maybe like the matte black, because again, this motor is just very hidden down in the engine bay, so the covers were not that fancy. It was NA, unlike the modern ZR1, which is supercharged. It is injected with, see, I thought I might have a problem here. It is multi-point, so I'm going to have to jump up to 92 to accomplish that, but that's okay. I also wanted to go up on the top end quality. This is a very expensive motor, it's a very expensive car, so they definitely did not cheap out on parts like that. It was a single intake just like that. We'll put a performance intake on it. It was a high performance car running on premium unleaded. We'll go fairly lean. It was a good, well-tuned motor and pretty aggressive on ignition timings, and so you've got premium unleaded. Here's a kicker. Here's what's gonna, I have a feeling is gonna give me a headache. 7,000 RPM was its fuel cut. I may bring that down. Redline, as far as I can tell, Redline actually started at about 6850. So we've got some wiggle room there. I'd like to make it work at 7 though. Let's go up one click on that as well. The exhaust system, everything was very high tuned. Had tubular style exhaust. Out dual exhaust that were 2.5 inches. The three-way cat is what I'm going to pick. A lot of discussion on what they would be using, what they used, but I'm thinking three-way cats pretty much took over about 1990 as the standard. So I'll go three-way cat there. As I'm gonna go with a pretty loud exhaust system as well. These were high performance, not your normal daily driving car, so I'm just gonna go with some straight through mufflers on the back. So we'll see how ridiculously loud it is. I might have to tone that down a little bit. Okay, so numbers. Keep in mind, this is a motor in an era coming out of the 80s where we had gigantic 400 cubic inch V8s making 200 horsepower. This 350 Chevy overhead cam motor was making 405 horsepower at 5,800 RPM and 385 foot-pounds at 4,800 RPM. Those are incredibly awesome numbers, especially for the era, and especially for the car. The C4 Corvette was not exactly the most high-performance oriented Corvette there ever was, and it was pretty unexpected to see that ZR1 come along and be such a high-performance car. So let's do a test and see how close we are. Engine failed due to knock, so that fuel is being an issue. I'm noticing that the premium, quote-unquote, is 90. Premium here is 93, so I'm going to go up to that, even though it's called Super. Let's see what else can we do. I want to back off on that ignition timing a little. And maybe up the fuel mix a little bit. So let's see if we can at least get a full run out of it. Well, we got 400 on the chart. That's encouraging. Okay, good news, bad news. As expected, the bottom end part is reducing the MTBF. And I think it is actually failing. Let's see. No, 37,000, so it's not failing, but it is reducing its lifespan. On the flip side, this motor probably had a pretty limited lifespan. It was highly experimental, and so you know it's acceptable, I would say, to have a pretty low MTBF, but I'd like to get it higher than that. So let's go to the bottom end. Something is reaching its RPM limit. Max RPM is average until you get to high beam steel on the conrods, so I'm not going to mess with that. The crank goes up to very high if you go up to the forged steel. I'm not sure if that's what I was using or not. I couldn't find that information. But let's throw that in there and see what that does for us. Also notice I was making more torque than horsepower, so I want to up the cam profile pretty high. And let's see if that balances this out, because we're basically where we need to be, just inversed. Okay, so, well, we didn't really fix the bottom end issues at all with that, so I can go back down to cast iron there. Not really too much I could do besides forged pistons, which I don't believe it had, so not too much I can do there. We'll go up on the quality some more, but basically I'm just going to go down to 6,800 RPM and hope that that fixes that issue. Power-wise, making too much power now, like way too much power. So I'm gonna go down. On the ignition timing, and I'm gonna go about 48 on the cam profile. And what I may be able to do is actually get it down to a premium unleaded motor. So we'll see. Still drastically too much power. Well, not drastically, 20 horsepower too much. Making it a little later than I'd like as well. And the torque is peaking at 400. And it's got a little bit of a lumpy curve. Ignition timing is probably not helping that at all. So let's see. Give this a little bump back up. How to make less power, I'm not too sure. I'm gonna come back off the quality of the top end and the fuel system. Maybe put a standard intake on it, and let's do 2 straight through mufflers per side. Much quieter now. But not too quiet. Okay, so now we're getting a much sharper downturn at the top end. I'm not sure what caused that. Let's see. Alright, so still making too much power, so I'm going to go off the cam profile a little bit more. To reduce that torque, there's not a whole lot I can do there. I still need to come off the RPM limit a little because it's trying to explode. Let's see. No, there's not much I can do. Quick test here. 406, 398. That's pretty good. We got the MTBF up to 49,000 kilometers, so it's not great. But I definitely realized this was going to be an extremely difficult motor to try and pull off. It was such an ambitious build for 90s, or 92 even. So, yeah, it's to be expected, I suppose. So I think I'm going to say that that's okay. And label this one the LT5. Well, let's go. Chevy. Oops, LT5. Okay. Alrighty, so now we're going to change gears a little bit. We're going to move up quite a bit into the future. The LT1 and the LT5 kind of held supreme through the early 90s. The LT5 went away. It was very limited production. They only made less than 7,000 of them. But a lot of the spirit of that motor kind of got put into the North Star V8 that went into Cadillacs. I mentioned that earlier. So it's not like that technology just went away. But it never found its way into Chevy's muscle cars like the Camaro, the Firebird, or YX Firebird, and obviously the Corvette. But in '98, they started work on a new generation of small block Chevy, and that is the LS1, which has become an extremely iconic motor. I think it will be for a very long time as well. Okay, so basically, when you at first glance, the LT1 to the LS1 doesn't look like that much of a transition, but in reality, it was a pretty sizable leap forward and a little bit of a departure from the traditional 350 Chevy. You had an aluminum block, and that, similar to the LT5 99, let's see, can I get it without like messing around? Yes, 99 by 92 on a stroke, or a 3.9 by 3.62. And if you have a keen eye, you may notice that's actually pretty far below 350 cubic inches, 345. And that was one of the larger departures from a traditional 350 Chevy. So yeah, this motor kicks off a new era of smaller bored motors, aluminum blocks, and more high-tech EFI systems, and has really reshaped the whole kind of persona around a Chevy V8 into something that's a lot more modern, even though there's still an overhead valve. So we're gonna push this one back to 1998. I have a pretty standard bottom end, but we are now using hyper-eutectic cast pistons pretty much exclusively in 98, so this one does as well. As I mentioned, top end is going to be push rod. We'll give that a little quality bump because as noted by the automation devs on the comments of the last video, if anybody has a high quality push rod system, it's probably going to be an American manufacturer, so we can feel pretty comfortable giving that a good quality bump. The compression is 10:1. Obviously there's many different variations of this motor, but the regular, we're going with the first generation 1998 LS1 had a 10.1:1. Cam profile, we'll leave it 40 for now. The style of the valve covers, I'm going with these because that is what they use. They use these covers over the valve covers on pretty much all LS1s. So that's what we'll stick with. Naturally aspirated, obviously. Fuel system is a multi-point, and now we do have the correct style intake there. It should be black and plastic, but it's close enough. We'll put a standard intake on this guy, which unfortunately puts a big cover over the intake. I wish that was optional. Hint, hint. So let's see. This one we're gonna run on. I think I'm gonna run it on premium. I don't believe there's any LS1s that run on regular, so we'll go with that. We'll give the fuel mix a nice middle of the road 13.0 to 1. Ignition timing, I'll leave it 50 for now. Red line is at 6,000. Fuel cut is at 6,200. So I'll go with 6,000 to start with. Exhaust kind of has just normal short cast headers on it. Usually a dual exhaust, about 2 1/4. Three-way cats, and we'll go reverse flow straight through. Most like the C5 Corvette, which this debuted in, and like the 98 F-bodies, Firebirds, Camaros, actually had pretty quiet exhaust systems on them, so I'm pretty comfortable going with that reverse flow and straight through, even though it's kind of all in one huge, gigantic chamber. So we'll stick with that. This motor is supposed to make 345 horsepower at 5200 RPM and 350 foot-pounds of torque at 4400 RPM. So these numbers are not drastically different than the LT1's numbers. In fact, you're only gaining about 40 horsepower. The big thing was how much more reliably this made that power. You got away from the distributor setup with the crazy coil packs that constantly failed. Now we have coil near plug setup, so it has a coil sitting on the valve cover going right to a plug. Whoa, there's a mistake. How about we put those to aluminum? Thank you. What was I saying? Oh, the aluminum, that's what I was saying. The aluminum block, aluminum head setup, way more reliable than an iron block aluminum head. You stop seeing those failures there. And overall, it's just a much more rock-solid, reliable motor. So let's see how close we are to our numbers. A little bit high on torque, but not bad. But pretty drastically low on horsepower, so we know how to fix that. Octane, we are good, so we can give it some ignition timing if needed. But I'm going to go up to a 50 cam profile and give it maybe a little bit of bump in ignition timing. Now, the numbers on this motor, the horsepower I have ranges from 345 to 350, depending if it was in a Camaro or a Corvette. And the torque ranges from 350 to 375, also depending on which car it's in. So it was tuned a little differently per car, so we've got some wiggle room there. But I'd like to get close to that 345, 350 mark. Alright, so there's 345 horsepower. Torque's still a little bit high, but it's supposed to have more torque than horsepower, so I'm not terribly upset with that. Let's see if maybe a little bit step up on the cam profile fix it. Do a quick test. Nope, just made more of both, so that does not really do as much good. So I think let's do that. Retest that. Yep, 345, 365. I think that is what I'm gonna say is good. Fairly cheap motor, not too many man hours, and the material costs are not terrible. And that's pretty fitting for a motor that has, in current day, wound up in pretty much anything ever made. LS swaps are all the craze right now. There is a ton of different generations. There's the LS2, LS3, I believe the LS4, and the motor we're going to move on to next. This family of motors has gotten very huge, but the LS1 is what started it all. So let's save on that one. But now let's move on to the current day Mac Daddy. So now we're going to move away from the 350 Chevy, but we're staying in the small block Chevy family, and that is the LS7. So this motor is GM's modern Mac Daddy motor. As far as the naturally aspirated ones go, they have gotten real big into the supercharging here lately, the LS9, crazy motors like that. But for what we have available in the game right now, the LS7 is going to be the Mac Daddy, the best Chevy V8 you could possibly build. So that is what we are going to do. It is also aluminum blocked, and it is 104.7 on the bore by 101.6 on the stroke. Wow, I hit that very, very quickly. How amazing. So what's that give us? That gives us a capacity of a 427 cubic inch motor. So it's gigantic, 7-liter motor. So you can expect to be making a whole lot of power out of this thing. It also features a forged steel crank, forged titanium connecting rods. So we're gonna go I-beam titanium. That's gonna be extremely expensive. Oh, this year needs to go up some. I didn't make that until about 07. So and hypertactic pistons. So we're gonna be expecting a pretty high rev band again, but we've still got a push rod set up. So unlike the LT5, which was the super high performance ZR1 motor, this one is gonna stay push rod rather than overhead cam. They've certainly gotten the push rod set up to do some pretty amazing things over the years, and this motor is no exception. The compression, 11.1 to 1. Familiar number. I'm going to go ahead and already bump up the cam profile a little bit, but I have a feeling these numbers are going to be pretty easy to make with that gigantic bore stroke, so no worries there. We'll go with the covers again. Naturally aspirated. It's too bad we don't have superchargers, but I'm sure we will eventually. Fuel system, it is injection. It is not direct injection yet. It is still regular multi-point. See, no direct injection just yet on this motor. They are getting into that now. But regular multi-point EFI on this guy. We'll put a performance intake on it, and we'll run it on premium, because I think the horsepower and torque we're looking for is not going to be a challenge. Let's see, we're in the fuel mix about that 13 seems to be a good number. We'll leave the ignition timing at 50, but we're going to go up to 7,000 RPM on the rev limit. Hold on, push rods, you're going to go for a ride. Exhaust, we're going to go with tubular setup. Pretty high-tech exhaust on their modern V8s. No more cast setups. They want to extract every horsepower they can possibly get. We'll go with a 2.5-inch exhaust on high-flow cats, and we'll just do straight-through exhaust. But these actually have, oops, got to go dual, bypass valves on them, so we'll do twin straight-through. Let's see if we can find 500 horsepower at 6,200 RPM and 475 foot-pounds of torque at 4,800 RPM. I think you can do it. The chart doesn't think you can do it. I'm guessing it's probably a lane issue. Holy cow, that got loud with the cutouts. Valve float is occurring. Kind of expected that. That bottom end is reducing. Oh wow, that is surprising. So it was. Oh, it was running too high on octane. So let's go back up to 93 there. Top end, we're probably going to max this sucker out to get it to stop valve floating. And the bottom end surprised me. But I'll go up to 5 on that as well. Let's try it again. Oh wait, let's put some reverse flows on there as well. I guess it's not really going to do anything with the cutouts. Let's go with just reverse flows. That'll work. Quiet it down low at least. Okay, so now our chart's looking a little better. So now we just have a problem at the bottom end. The valve float has gone away, so I can just increase this. And you know why I don't have a problem increasing this? Because these motors are still hand assembled in Bowling Green. So every one of these motors is assembled by hand in a factory, not by machines or robots or anything. They still have people there torquing down every bolt on these suckers. So I have no problem with having a ton of man hours involved in building these. But let's see about maybe getting the horsepower up. So let's bring that cam profile up a little bit, and let's get the ignition timing up a little bit as well. And try that again. We done gone too far. Let's go back down off of that just a little bit there. 51 maybe. We'll just do a quick test here. That's 513. So we can go back a little bit more even. 496. But see, I'm still making way too much torque. I doubt I'm gonna get away from that though. The size of this motor is going to be indicative of a pretty high torque number, so I don't think we're going to really get away from that, especially with the push rod setup. So the head is not flowing as well as it could. Alright, so I've been fiddling with this thing, trying to get the numbers to be closer. I think I found some stuff that will get us there. Alright, very good. So 500 horsepower on the dot, 6,400 RPMs. That's just a little bit later than it should be. 490 foot-pounds. Only slightly higher than it needs to be, but it's coming much later, so that's good. So that's much closer to the 4,800 RPM I had before. Otherwise, I've gotten the bottom end issue figured out, so I don't need quite so many man hours. 146 is still a lot of man hours, but like I said, these motors have a lot of man hours behind them, so no big deal there. Fuel octane's looking a little weird. And that is because I went way down on the timing to get it to get the right horsepower and torque numbers that we should have. So had to do a little trickery there with the cam profile and the ignition timing. But I'm happy with that result. It's a realistic number and a nice looking curve. Nothing concerning there. So here we have the Chevy LS7. Alrighty, so that's what I'm going to say is the completion of the quote-unquote small block 350 Chevy motors, even though obviously all of them were not 350 Chevys. And now we're going to move on to some other American engines that are iconic, but we're going to stick with the Chevy side of things for now, because there's a whole lot of other Chevy motors that don't fall into the small block Chevy category that definitely need to be done. But we'll be saving those motors for next time. As always, my name is Code Dodger. Thanks for watching.